Hey, this year we've got the opportunity to be led by Russell Rainey. And I'm not going to tell you Russell's full resume. I'm going to let him tell you a little bit more about himself. If you know Russell, he doesn't like talking about himself. You can know Russell for years and not know all of his accomplishments and different things. So we forced him this morning. We said, you know, Russell, if you're going to lead us on the great adventure, guys need to hear things you've done as a businessman, things you've done as a mountain guide. I'll just say as his friend, as a coworker, somebody that gets to do life with Russell. I'm excited about this year because Russell's a man who's lived adventures. We're going to hear about a lot of them over the course of the year. He's lived it. But more than that, he's lived the great adventure. And I've watched him as he's not only lived it, he leads other guys so they can live it too. He's a guide. And he's going to take us on a climb this year. I just want to challenge you right out of the gate. This is a guy worth listening to. He's a guy worth following. But let's take the whole climb together. Let's make a commitment from this group that we're going to do the 20 weeks together because we don't want to just climb. We want to reach the summit. Hey, why don't we welcome Russell Rainey with a warm welcome this morning and just letting him know our excitement about him leading us this year.
Thanks, Tim. Well, good morning, men. Good morning and welcome to Men's Fraternity. Welcome to the great adventure. This morning, we begin an epic journey together, a journey to explore, to discover, and most importantly, to live the great adventure. You know, throughout history, when men have heard the call to adventure, they have responded. When Lewis and Clark put out their famous call to adventure with a poster that promised hardship, challenge, starvation, and almost certain death, hundreds of men responded. When the Pony Express put out their call to adventure with this ad, wanted young, skinny, wiry fellas, not over 18, must be expert riders, willing to risk death daily. Orphans preferred. Hundreds of men responded. And now, here this morning, when we've put out our call to adventure, hundreds of men have responded. This is fantastic. What an incredible turnout. I love seeing all you guys here. In this room, we have the entire breadth of manhood. We have young and old. We have big and small. We have introverts and extroverts. We have poets and we have warriors. And yet in the midst of all this diversity, the thing that unites us is adventure. It's adventure that rises up within us when we watch those great epic movies like Braveheart and Gladiator. It's adventure that got you here this morning. Our promotions were very clear that this year's men's fraternity was all about adventure. It's why you're here. Now, many other men heard that same call to adventure this morning, and yet, unlike you, they chose to stay warm in their beds. T.E. Lawrence, the famed Lawrence of Arabia, spoke directly to these fateful choices men make when he wrote these words. All men dream, but not equally. Those who dream by night in the dusty recesses of their minds wake in the day to find that it's vanity. But the dreamers of the day are dangerous men, for they act their dream with open eyes to make it possible. This morning, you ended your dreams of the night to be here with other dangerous men, eyes wide open, to act our dreams into reality. Welcome to the great adventure. Now, my job, as you heard, is to be your guide to the great adventure. Now, for me to be successful, you're going to have to trust me, because it's one of the 3 cardinal rules of guiding. First cardinal rule of guiding is don't kill the client. Second cardinal rule of guiding, don't let the client kill you. And the third cardinal rule of guiding, If you don't trust your guide, you won't get to the top. But before you trust a guide, you got to know two things. You need to know who he is, and you need to know where he intends to guide you. So as Tim mentioned, to help you get to know a little bit about who I am, I'm going to just give you 3 of my core characteristics. Characteristic number 1, I'm an inventor. My whole life, I've been coming up with crazy ideas for new products, and most of them have been crazy and even stupid and haven't worked out very well, but I have had a couple of successes along the way. My most famous invention was a snow ski binding that radically improved downhill performance for extreme skiing. That binding is now in the Skiing Hall of Fame and is listed as one of the top 10 innovations in the 185-year history of modern skiing. Inventors, more than anything, inventors love creativity for a purpose, which is a good thing because this year we're going to discover how creatively you've been designed and for what purpose. Characteristic number 2, I'm an entrepreneur. I've been starting and building businesses since I was in high school. I grew up in the family of entrepreneurs led by my dad, who taught me everything I needed to know about running a successful business by the time I was 16. More than anything, entrepreneurs love turning problems into opportunities. And that's a good thing because this year we're going to turn some of our biggest problems into some of our greatest opportunities. Characteristic number 3, I'm a mountain guide. For years, I trained to become a professional mountain guide, primarily at the National Outdoor Leadership School. And then in 1989, I received one of the greatest honors possible in the mountaineering world when I was invited to become an EXIM mountain guide. Founded in 1929 and based in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, EXIM is the most famous guide service on the planet. So much so that a few years ago, Outside Magazine did a cover story on EXIM. In the story, the author created the following Help Wanted ad to describe how tough it was to become an EXIM guide. Here it is. Help Wanted. EXIM Mountain Guides, the country's premier climbing service, is looking for supremely talented alpinists with world-class resumes for seasonal work in the Tetons. Must be willing to follow in the footsteps of legends. If qualified, don't bother calling. We'll find you. More than anything, mountain guides love big, bold challenges. And that is a very good thing because this year, we're going to take on some big, bold challenges on our way to the great adventure. Now that's a little about who I am. Let me tell you about where I intend to guide us. When I left the outdoor world, there was a lot of confusion about why I left. The speculation got so crazy that stories about how I died in an avalanche or in a car wreck or even from a heart attack began to circulate. Amid all that confusion, Backcountry Magazine sent a reporter out to Jackson Hole to spend a few days with me to find out the truth. Then they ran a cover story that concluded with the following. Rainey had enough time and money to do whatever he wanted to do. Life was good. He had gotten what he'd worked hard for, but something was missing. He realized he had been living life for himself, so he began investing in others, and it brought him amazing satisfaction. Living for causes that are greater than yourself, Rainey says, that's adventure. Now, I don't know about you, but my experience over the years of getting quoted in the press is that they almost always get it wrong. Misquote after misquote. This article was an exception. This article got it right. Living for causes that are greater than yourself, that's adventure. And that's exactly where I intend to guide us this year on this journey called men's fraternity. Now, some of you have been through men's fraternity before. You're our men's fraternity veterans. Welcome back. And some of you, though, are having your very first men's fraternity experience here this morning. I remember my first men's fraternity experience. It's an exciting day, even if you don't know it now. I look back on it almost 10 years ago, and I just see how much men's fraternity has changed my life. There's men in this room who knew me pre-men's fraternity, and they have a hard time recognizing who I've become. It's a powerful program. So to help you get oriented, let me give you a big picture overview of men's fraternity. Men's fraternity was started right here at Fellowship Bible Church in 1990 by Robert Lewis. Since then, it's grown to become the largest men's ministry movement on the planet, with almost 20,000 men's fraternity groups worldwide. People ask me, how's men's fraternity so successful? And I tell them it's because it has 3 key ingredients. The first key ingredient to men's fraternity success is that this is a safe place for men to get real with other men. We are all trying to be better men. We all struggle to be better men. And most of the time, we try real hard to hide that struggle. You know, we keep our guard up high so no one can see the effort it's taken for us to just try to be better. We call that posing, and we all do it. We all act like we've got life a little more figured out than we actually do, don't we? Sometimes it's maybe at the mechanics when we act like we know more about car engines than we actually do, or maybe it's at the restaurant when we act like we know more about fine wines than we actually do, or maybe it's at church on Sunday morning when we act like we've got the perfect, happy family. Just moments after screaming at our wife and bullying our kids to get ready on time. We all pose. We pose because we find out early in life that it's rarely safe to be ourselves. A buddy of mine had his 40th birthday not long ago, and he said, on my first day of high school, I showed up and I had a big zit right in the middle of my forehead. He said one of the older boys teased me and called me Cyclops. He said, man, I never again went to high school with a zit in my forehead, but all throughout high school, I was known as Cyclops. The world is full of men like that, trying to bring us down, so we learn early to pose. But men's fraternity, this place, this is a no-pose zone, because we are all men here to become better men, living better lives. That makes us all equal. No matter where you are on that journey, this is a place where other men want to see you win in life. That's a powerful statement. Let me say that again. Men's fraternity is a place where other men want to see you win in life. Men's fraternity's second key ingredient. And this is a place where you can consider and process the 3 big, hairy questions of life. Okay, the first thing for you to write down this morning, just write down these 3 words. Write down the word who. Write down the word why. And write down the word where. Those are our 3 questions. The big hairy questions. Who am I? Are you laser clear on your identity? Why am I here? Are you laser clear on your purpose? And where am I going? Are you laser clear on your destiny? You've got to answer those questions correctly, or you won't live much of a life, and you definitely won't live the great adventure. The third and final key ingredient to men's fraternity success is fun. This is a place where we can laugh and relax and enjoy just being with other men. Over and over again, multi-million-dollar research projects get done by major universities like Harvard and Stanford on the subject of fun. And they all keep coming back telling us the very same thing. Fun is good for us. Really? I mean, did we need $1 million worth of research to tell us that? Of course not. Now, if anybody knows me, they know that I love to have fun. So we will definitely have some fun in here this year. Primarily, we'll do that by looking at the things that make us guys. From cradle to grave, we're all guys. It's the part of us that women will never understand, right? I remember how horrified my wife was when she realized that all my disgusting and annoying traits were inherited by our son. At birth. No one had to teach him that. He just knew how to be a guy. No one had to teach him how to make a gun out of everything. Give him a sandwich, he'd chew it into the shape of a gun and shoot Mom with it. Give him Barbie, he'd fold her in half and open fire on his sister, right? No one had to teach him to laugh at a fart. He just knew it was funny. My wife doesn't get that. No one had to teach him to run around the house with no clothes on screaming, "I'm naked!" No one had to teach him that, and definitely no one had to teach him how to scratch in his manly places. He just knew. Some things are just guy, like this video of this guy who took fly fishing literally. Watch this.
We're always looking for exciting new ways to go fishing. Now, this little bit of fishing is something that I've been inspired to do by one of the greatest fishing creatures of them all, the gannet. Now, how a gannet catches its fish is it simply flies around, uses its elevation to spot fish, it falls out of the sky and grabs a fish. Now, to me that sounds pretty logical, so we've enlisted the help of Simon here at Vanuatu Helicopters. There's a prolific amount of mahi-mahi, tuna, wahoo and even marlin out here. We're going to go out here and see if we can find one of those fish, and I'm going to jump out of the sky and grab one. Quite simple, really.
Heli to support boat. We've located a marlin and gannet man is standing by, ready to jump. Over.
Well, there, here we go here. Just up in front of us, there's a bit of activity. There is a few birds there. It looks like, you know, definitely a school of mahi-mahi on the surface, and there's a bigger fish there that could be a shark. No, it's a marlin. So we've just got to get lined up now, and while the fish is still feeding on the surface, we've got to take our opportunity.
Looks like you got him. We'll go again. Okay, roger that.
That is awesome. Now that's the way to go fly fishing, an all-guy fly fishing experience. I see some guys in here I know they love to go fly fishing. Try that one out on site on the Little Red. Well, we'll laugh a lot this year as we talk about the things that make us guys, but most importantly, we want to talk about the things that make us men, because becoming a guy is easy, but becoming a man is an adventure. Your workbook has a chart of exactly how men's fraternity is designed. Let me fill in the blanks. Now, before I start filling in the blanks, though, let me tell you two things. First of all the answers are in the back of the book. Exactly. We understand, guys. I told you this is a safe place, so don't worry if you don't write fast. Second, all the quotes, movie clips, and other stuff I'll use will be posted up on our website later this morning. The website is theadventure.cc, and if you hadn't already, go there and give us your name and your email, because we're going to send out some cool stuff this year. We won't send out anything more than one email a week, but we're going to send out some cool stuff that you won't want to miss. Okay, back to the chart. Men's fraternity has 3 different one-year journeys called the Quest, the Challenge, and the Adventure, which is the journey we're on this year. Let's look first of all at the Quest column. The Quest focuses on a man's core identity. Its chief elements are freedom and definition, because we must have freedom from our past and definition for our future. Definition is important because we can't become what we can't define. We can't become a real man if we can't define what a real man is. The major challenge is boy must die. There comes a place where a man has to put away childish things. He has to move on to real manhood. Our culture loves to proclaim that it's boyhood that's free and fun, and manhood is just burdensome and boring. That's a lie, a huge lie. Manhood, real manhood, is where the fun is. It's where the adventure is. Real manhood is where the life is. The passion of the quest is seizing manhood, and the direction of the quest is go. Now let's look at the challenge column here. The challenge focuses on a man's core responsibility. Its chief elements are work and home, because we must win in these two arenas of work and home, because that's where we spend most of our time, our energy, and our resources. The major challenge is man must live. To win at work and home, you must step forward with wisdom and courage in a way that gives life to your coworkers, and gives life to your wife, and gives life to your children, so that they love looking to you for leadership. The passion of the challenge is establishing manhood, and the direction of the challenge is fight. Now let's look at the adventure column. This is the journey we're on this year. The adventure focuses on a man's core destiny. Its chief elements are discover and pursue, because this year we will discover and pursue your unique design and your unique purpose. The major challenge is purpose must soar. To live a great adventure, you must pursue a great purpose. You must have one that pops your head off the pillow in the morning because you're disciplined to it and focused on it. You know why you're here, and you know where you're going. Recently, scientists at Johns Hopkins University surveyed 8,000 college students on 50 campuses to determine what they considered most important in life. Scary question. 75%, an overwhelming majority, 75% said that their number one goal in life was to find a purpose. Wow. 75% knew that their purpose must soar. Robert Lewis has a great quote about the power of purpose. Until a man discovers and commits himself to a cause that is timeless, heroic, and supremely meaningful, no amount of pleasure or success will fulfill his heart. Bottom line, no great purpose, no great adventure. The passion of the adventure is maximizing manhood, and the direction of the adventure is win. As clearly as I can state it, here's our goal for this year: to help you discover and pursue your great adventure in both this life and the next. For you younger guys, I'll stretch you to think long term about this life. For you older guys, I'll stretch you to rethink long term about this life. And for us all, I'll stretch us to think about the next life. This life ends. We all know that. No man here believes that he'll live forever, which is why what we believe about the next life has such a huge impact on how we live this life. One of my favorite mountains in the world to guide, even to climb for that matter, is the Grand Teton. Here's a picture of it. In case you're wondering, it's the big one. This is out in Jackson Hole, and there's a famous place. It's a 2-day climb, and you spend one night up on the side of the mountain, and you get up early the next morning, kind of like y'all did this morning, and one of the critical places is out at the end of a place called Wall Street. It's a ledge that starts out really big and wide. Now, this climb from the base to the summit is 7,000 feet of climbing. And when you get up near the top, it's just all vertical rock. And there's a place out at the end of Wall Street, this ledge that starts out big enough to drive a car on. And you start climbing up it, and this wide ledge starts to get smaller and smaller and smaller until finally it ends. And at the end of Wall Street, there's nothing below you but 2,000 feet of air. The way forward is to reach out as far as you can, standing on the edge of that ledge with your right hand and taking a big step off the end of Wall Street and hopefully onto a ledge, a new ledge that you can't yet see. Man, that place will definitely get your attention. Now, if my clients won't take that step, we've got to turn back. The summit is lost. We can't go forward. I do everything I can in that moment to encourage my clients to trust me. I've gone out ahead. Now they can't see me at that point. They just feel the rope. And they hear me saying, you can do it. The last thing they want to do at that moment, though, is trust me. Or trust the rope. Or even trust themselves. But if in the midst of all that doubt and fear, they will trust me and they'll take that scary step, they'll find that I was telling them the truth. They'll find that that step of faith was the way forward. This year, we will consider the next life. And there will be a place where I'll ask you to take a scary step of faith because it's the way forward. At that moment, you'll have to decide if you're going to trust me or not. Let me give you 4 assumptions that I'll make this year on our journey together. Assumption number 1, our Creator desires for us to live a meaningful adventure. That's a big statement. Let me give you a couple of examples to back that up. You know, if you open the Bible and start at the beginning, one of the first things you see is God talking to Adam. And he says, Adam, I want you to be fruitful and multiply and subdue the earth. Now think about that just for a second. Here's the very first guy. And the very first job that God gives him is a global adventure. When Jesus was about to ascend into heaven, he turns to his disciples and said, Go into all the world. Now, for a bunch of dudes that had never been more than a few miles from their hometown, going into all the world was a huge adventure. Then you have Jesus saying to all of us the 2 most adventurous words ever spoken in the history of mankind when he says, follow me. In all those examples, you hear the word adventure. It was an adventure for Adam. It was an adventure for the disciples. And it's an adventure that Jesus calls us to. The clear shout down from heaven is this: I want you to live an adventure. Assumption number 2, many men often miss this spirit of adventure in their lives. Others lose it somewhere along life's journey. Listen to Mark Twain's words that encourage us not to miss life's adventure. 20 years from now, you will be more disappointed by the things that you didn't do than by the ones you did do. So throw off the bow lines, sail away from the safe harbor, catch the trade winds in your sails, explore, dream, discover. Listen to Dante's words and encourage us not to lose life's adventure. In the middle of the road of my life, I awoke in a dark wood where the true way was wholly lost. Assumption number 3, men need ongoing adventure to stay alive. Some men work hard to maximize adventure, and for a time they do, but without a great purpose, the adventure always ends. That was my life. That was what I experienced. You know, we've all seen that play out with aging athletes. Remember Michael Jordan? Wouldn't you love to finish your career with that last second shot to win the championship? But he finished without a vision for what was next. And without a vision for a way forward, he did what men always do. He went back to where the adventure was. It's not going to be there, but that's what we do when we don't know the way forward. What we wanted was excitement. What we got was a dead end. Some men make the opposite mistake. Rather than maximize adventure, they work hard to minimize adventure. And after a while, when we tame life and we've got the mortgage under control and we've got the kids under control and we got the wife under control, all of a sudden we look up and we go, life's no fun. I played it safe so long that life's no fun anymore. What we wanted was security. What we got was boredom. Assumption number 4, an adventuresome man lives differently than others who blindly plod onward. Now, for a man to live differently, he will have to make some courageous choices, and he will have to take some courageous chances. And at times, he's going to have to break with conformity. He's even going to have to risk being weird. One of my best friend's biggest fears is that he would be seen by the world as weird. I hope this journey this year gives you the permission to be weird. Go for it. Try it. Step out there. Because that's what men are supposed to do. Now let me give you 6 promises that I can deliver on if you finish this year. If you'll be a finisher, here are 6 promises I can make you. Promise number 1, you will have opportunities to think deeply about who you are and where you are going while making some significant personal discoveries in the process. You know, thinking deeply about life isn't usually a guy's strong point. Most of us would like to go out into life like we did in college and high school, you know, where we just kind of put our head down and our butt up and we just go forward, 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 blindly forward until one day we crash into a brick wall. And all I'm saying is look up, look around, and ask some questions about why you're here and where you're going. If you don't ask those questions, you'll have that famous half-life experience known as a midlife crisis. This crisis of identity and direction used to be reserved for men in their 40s and 50s, but now we see it in men in their 30s and occasionally even men in their 20s. Now, I'm sure none of you young men here are ever going to have a midlife crisis, right? Because that only happens to losers. You know, guys that never really do anything in life, never really accomplish anything. You know, guys like the Beatles, who at the height of their success wrote the song Nowhere Man about the midlife crisis they were experiencing. Listen to these words. He is a real nowhere man, living in his nowhere land, making all his nowhere plans for nobody. Doesn't have a point of view, knows not where he's going to. Isn't he a bit like you and me? He is as blind as he can be, knows not what he wants to be. Nowhere man, can you still see at all? Or guys like Tom Brady, quarterback of the New England Patriots. Imagine that you're 30 years old and you've quarterbacked 3 Super Bowl wins. You're the MVP. You're getting paid $60 million. You're dating actresses and supermodels. And People magazine has just named you America's most eligible bachelor. And yet, in the midst of all this success, this is what he had to say. I have 3 Super Bowl rings and I still think there's something greater out there. I think life's got to be more than this. I wish I knew the answer. I wish I knew. Tom Brady is living the good life, but he is definitely not living the great adventure. If you're a young man and you're not clear about where you're going, then where you're going is crashing in to that same half-life brick wall that all these other men crashed into. Do you think you're immune? Really? I know what that feels like. I used to think I was immune. I was never going to have a midlife crisis. I was wrong. Listen to God's warning about this trap. Therefore, be careful how you walk, not as unwise men, but as wise, making the most of your time, because the days are evil. What does that mean, the days are evil? The days are evil because without a clear purpose and a clear direction, every day will steal life from you and leave you lost. Promise number 2, you will have the opportunity to interact with other men who can help you think more clearly and objectively about your life. Proverbs 27:17 is one of my favorite. It says, iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another. You guys ever seen iron sharpen iron? It's not smooth. It always generates a lot of sparks. But in the process, both pieces of iron become razor sharp. That's why we have small groups. When I finish and Tim comes up to, and some of the other guys come up to break us into small groups, some of you guys aren't going to have a small group. That's okay. Remember, this is a safe place. Just come down front when they call and join one. Every year, men tell us the most valuable part of their men's fraternity experience is their small group. So don't cheat yourself. Have the courage to come down front and get connected. Promise number 3, you will learn how to focus your life using a life focus chart. In a few weeks, I'm going to give you a simple but powerful tool that you'll help create. It's something you can keep in your wallet to help you stay focused. Because all men lose focus. All men lose focus. Great men get it back quickly. Promise number 4, you will develop a personal mission statement. I love this part of the journey. Imagine having a personal mission statement created by you and for you based on your unique design and your unique purpose. A mission impossible for you to accomplish. A few years ago, while in Italy, my wife and I happened upon a World War II Allied cemetery. It's a fascinating place. As I read each of the names and the ranks and the nationalities and then the birth dates and the death dates, I was struck by how trivial a symbol was used to represent their life. Their entirety of their life, everything between their birth date and their death date was represented by a dash, a minus sign. I just thought, that's not right, especially for so brave a life. I decided right then and there how I wanted my life represented on my tombstone. So here it is. Russell Rainey, born 1962, died 2000 and whatever. But instead of a dash, I wanted to read, Mission Impossible Accomplished. When people walk by, I want them to know I was offered an impossible mission. I want them to know that I had accepted an impossible mission. And I want them to know I had accomplished an impossible mission. Mission Impossible Accomplished. Now, to complete the experience, I'm going to invent this solar-powered MP3 player with a motion sensor, so when guys walk by, they'll hear this. I told you guys I was an inventor. And I also told you most of my ideas weren't very good. But that baby's going to sell millions. You all want one, you know it. Promise number 5. You will gain a better understanding of your unique design. Let me say that again. You will gain a better understanding of your unique design and what makes you come alive. In January, Tim Lundy is going to come up here and do an incredible job guiding us through the use of a powerful assessment tool called Your Unique Design. He'll teach us how to use this tool to become crystal clear on what makes us come alive. Coming alive has an amazing power. My favorite statement that talks about that is from Howard Thurman, who says, "Don't ask what the world needs. Ask what makes you come alive and go do that, because what the world needs is people who have come alive." Now, that's not some trivial call to, if it feels good, do it. That's a high and noble call to unleash your passion for a great purpose. Finally, promise number 6. You will have the opportunity to choose your future. Young men can get a jump start on an exciting first half adventure in life. Older men can retool for an exciting second half adventure in life. Life is a choice. Life is a choice. It is. But sometimes we don't live that way. Tom Patterson said, "The greatest tragedy of all is for a man to be managed by circumstances and live a half-dead life." I don't want us to be managed by circumstances. I don't want others to choose for us. I want us to develop the courage and the wisdom to choose an amazing life for ourselves. And the great part is, so does God. Listen to these words. How strongly he urges the Israelites to choose their future. "I have set before you life and death, the blessing and the curse. So choose life in order that you may live." For you young men, that means choosing to make much more than just a living. That means choosing to make a life. Every year at men's fraternities, I hear older men say the very same thing that I said on my first men's fraternity. They say, "Why didn't somebody tell me this stuff 20 years ago? If I'd have had this wisdom and these other men in my life, I could have done so much better." It's exactly what I said. The good news is that it's never too late to choose a different way forward. No matter how old you are, how off track you've gotten, it's never too late to choose to make a life. In Rwanda last year, on a great trip I took with Tim, I learned an old African proverb that speaks directly to men about choosing to make a life. It begins with these words to younger men. It says, "The best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago." And it finishes with these great words to older men. It says, "The second best time to plant a tree is today." Whether you begin this journey as a younger man or as an older man, I want us all to finish this journey in the very same way. I want us all to finish this journey the way Abraham finished his journey. Abraham's story is told in the book of Genesis in the Old Testament of the Bible. And at the end of that great story, it says this simple phrase about Abraham's death. It says, Abraham died. But then it goes on to add these incredible words, satisfied with life. Wouldn't you love to be Abraham at that moment? I mean, what an adventure he lived. He starts out life as a young guy in Ur, big businessman, very successful, has got everything going his way. And then God calls him to his purpose, saying, "Abraham, leave all this and head out on a journey to a land that I'll tell you about on the way. Leave all this. Chuck it all to an uncertain future." Man, that took courage. Courage that started Abraham on an adventure that was much more than just making a living. It started Abraham on an adventure that made a life. It was rugged at times, and it was tough at times, and it was challenging at times. And Abraham failed at times. But at the end of his life, he could look back and say, "I am satisfied." That's what I want for every man in here, that you can look back and be completely satisfied with this life and eagerly anticipating the next life. Let me close with these words from John Eldridge's great book, Wild at Heart. Adventure, with all its requisite danger and wildness, is a deeply spiritual longing written into the soul of man. The masculine heart needs a place where nothing is prefabricated, modular, non-fat, ziplocked, franchised, online, or microwavable. Where there are no deadlines, cell phones, or committee meetings. Just simply where there is room for the soul. Where finally, the geography around us corresponds to the geography of our heart. It is fear that keeps a man at home where things are neat and orderly and under his control. But the answers to his deepest questions are not to be found on television or at the ball game or in the refrigerator. These answers require a courageous adventurer whose quest is nothing less than the best of life. Men, welcome to men's fraternity. Welcome to the great adventure. Welcome to our quest for nothing less than the best of life. Tim?
Man, that's great stuff. I tell you, that's what I love about men's fraternity, is it's one of the few places where as men we talk about the stuff that we long for the most. Somewhere out there it all gets lost in the workday and life and everything, and it just gives you a context, and have a guy like you leading us and just talking about the things that we all long for the most.